All right, back here with another video. I am your host. This is KQ from KQ Anime. All right, guys. Today we have House of Veal here. Give them a shout out.
Welcome back. Let's get back into it.
So we're going to talk about Sanji today. Now, for those of you who haven't read the new chapter, this is your spoiler alert. We are going to be getting into new things here. There's going to be a lot of I told you so's, but we're here to talk about Vinsmoke Sanji, aka Mr. Cyborg, Mr. Prince, Mr.
Blackleg.
Exactly. Let's get into it. So, in these recent events with the chapter, we've got to hear new things about Sanji. Now, it's not just this chapter, but we had it in another chapter as well too, where Queen was saying that Sanji was a cyborg. Now, of course, Sanji, he doesn't want to believe things like that. He doesn't want to hear that he's another Vinsmoke. He's like his brothers, they're psychopaths. We get it. But, just but, what if Vinsmoke Sanji was just like his brothers in the physical sense? What if he also had an exoskeleton? What if he did have abilities, like in this case, fire manipulation? And what if he is just as strong with them in his base? And this is not even including his raid suit. So in order for us to get to the power scaling of this, like we have done in the past, Veal and I, we are going to get into the history of Sanji and exactly what makes him tick, both on a physiological level as well as a physical level. Let's begin.
So we're talking about Sanji, right? I'm starting to hear some crazy things about Sanji that I never thought I would ever hear. As you all know, I'm an anime watcher. I stopped watching I started reading the manga back after after the time skip, because I wanted to be surprised, and I guess I was just too lazy to keep up with it. Sanji, when I first saw Sanji pre-time skip, he was like strictly a background character to me. It took me a long time to like actually like him as like one of the main characters, because I thought he was like just strictly support. But as time went on, especially in the Alabasta arc, Sanji started doing some really, really cool things. He can take out multiple enemies like it's nothing, but it was really weird. I think always in the back of my mind, I always questioned, why is he able to set his leg on fire? I guess I always dismissed it as, he's moving so fast, he's causing friction in the air, leg catches on fire, and somehow that doesn't burn him. So I was always like, yo, Sanji's a cool guy. He can never be as great as Zoro and Luffy, because he's always, handicapping himself, always chasing after women, getting distracted. So he'll always be like, he won't be top tier because of that. But I always thought he was like a really strong character. It was a really hype moment when he would always do things that were like a little bit off. Like, can a regular human really do this stuff? And how is he able to do this stuff and keep up with non-power users? That time he kicked Bruno with his iron body, and it cracked his armor, and you're just kind of left wondering why. Like, how is he able to do that? So that's my memories of him pre-time skip. What do you want to say when I'm post-time skip?
Well, post-time skip Sanji, honestly, he got a little bit better for me in some senses. I did like his personality a lot more. I liked Sanji a lot more as a character pre-time skip. Post-time skip as a character, I think what did it for me was Fishman Island. And I know it was a plot device, but when he became unconscious because his nose was bleeding so much for seeing mermaids, I think that really did get to me. I'm like, all right, now
that's what I'm talking about.
They really did too much with this character. So as a character, I didn't like Sanji too much. For the most part, he did remain true to himself. So I know there's a lot of Sanji fans out there that's just like, nah, like they did him dirty. Truth be told, Sanji is the same he was at the beginning of the series, just a little bit too much in a sense, like where Now he's just, he's bleeding all the time from the nose for women. And then, but I do like the fact that he still is Mr. Prince. He still does try to save the day. He is there for the crew. So where he may not be fighting the main villain, he may not be trying to get scenes with them, he may not be trying to fight the right hand man, but at the same time, he does always look out for his crew, and that's what I really love about Sanji. Going into the power aspect, Doflamingo, when he did encounter Sanji, he did feel like he was pretty strong. But we really didn't see much for Sanji, to tell you the truth. Like, there was times that it was like, okay, he went up against a headliner and it was like, okay, that went like a little well, but that was it. And then we don't really see him doing much and on the whole Cake Island arc. Like, he had those encounters with his brothers.
Yeah, he was strictly side. He was pushing the story along.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
they were there because of him.
And you could tell it was all plot, like, because it was like, all right, so what does this have to do? Because you're not really showcasing Sanji in some type of epic way or super strong. Like, we get to see a relationship between him and Luffy. We did get the background story that he is part of a quadruplet. He's one of the four, and then he has a sister as fifth. Sanji was the third.
That was just mind blowing.
Yeah,
I remember you told me that. That's one of the regrets I have not reading.
Mm-hmm.
I hear about these crazy things. You told me about that he was a Vinsmoke. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, like, like, it's supposed to be the most notorious assassin. It's giving me Hunter x Hunter vibes with Killua.
That's what. At that point, I thought I knew everything I knew there was to know about the Straw Hats. Like,
yeah,
like we know everything about them. Like, everything else is just gonna be new information from outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Factors. Now I find out this guy his family is a bunch of mobsters, trained assassins.
Yeah, and not only just that, like, they're using what's considered Germa tech to enhance themselves. So Sanji, to give a little backstory that we got from Whole Cake Island, is that he was a quadruplet. Number 3 was on his shirt, so that goes into the monster trio. But we got to see that Sanji went through a training process. Now, his mom, prior to Sanji being born, she did take some drugs to pretty much counteract the cybergenetics that Vinsmoke Judge actually added to her pregnancy, so that she would have kids that are stronger than natural humans and also obedient to Judge off rip. But she tried to take these drugs and it seemed like it worked because Sanji was having poor test scores in training classes, as well as he didn't seem like a psychopath. He had his emotions intact. He was a very emotional kid at that, and he didn't listen to Judge.
To his defense, it was a very dysfunctional family.
Oh yeah, of course. Like, that's to say the least. And when we move on, I think ultimately, what we're learning going forward from that is that there's a possibility, and this is my theory, is that there is a possibility that her taking those drugs to try to counteract Judge's him trying to upset the natural flow of things. I think that what it ended up doing is that it gave Sanji a chance in life in which his emotions are fully intact, as well as he's not subservient to Judge. He doesn't have to listen to everything Judge says. So those two things, I think, is the only things that her taking those drugs actually did. When we look back at the chapters, the scientist that is observing and analyzing their test results, he's saying it seems like Sanji may not have been altered. But he said it just seems like it. But we only get that because, in like tests like, okay, jump into the water full of sharks. Sanji doesn't want to do that because he's too scared. A lot of the tests like he was trying to do, it was that his emotions got the best of him and he couldn't perform well. That's different than saying, okay, I ran your DNA, I looked at the results, it doesn't match. It's like, no, from the test, he's not performing as well, because part of that would mean that he has to be a psychopath. He has to not feel any negative, he has to not feel fear. He has to listen to Judge's orders. He has to be able to do certain things and he can't even get himself into the water in the first place. He's scared most of the time. He's crying most of the time. He's honestly just a regular kid. So it does seem like to us from Whole Cake Island is that his brothers were enhanced, whereas he wasn't. But now here we are in Whole Cake Island, and Queen is saying some different things. And one of the things, and this is where it really gets fun, one of the things that Queen said is that you got to be stupid to think that you are not a cyborg. What human do you know can combust on fire and be perfectly fine?
Which is crazy because they'll say characters will say stuff like that. Well, this is One Piece, and anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But then you really look back, dude. You look back. You try to reflect on the over 800 plus episodes, and you think like, so to see like, hey, yeah, no one else is doing this.
Exactly.
No one does that.
It's only him. And then the next.
I mean, one guy sets his sword on fire, but not his body.
Yeah, and the next thing is too now is that with this new chapter, we're seeing that Queen got out of his his form and was strangling Sanji, and it broke all his bones. And what's the next thing that happens? Sanji, all his bones are healed miraculously. Now, outside of that, you also have to take into account that the raid suit was also created way prior. So now a lot of people, and I know this is a misconception that is really through the community, and we're here to defuse misconceptions. His raid suit wasn't made at the time of Whole Cake Island. That's not when the raid suit was made.
Impossible.
The reason why we know the raid suit wasn't made then is because Law looked at the raid suit and automatically knew who that was. And he said that he read stories about it as a kid. So this means that this character, as an adult, was out there, known to the world. So the raid suits were made prior to these kids actually being known to the world. This is definitively prior. You also have to remember too, at some point in time, Queen also used to work with Judge, and Queen is saying that all of Judge's kids are cyborgs. So you have to wonder, when did that happen as well too? That he can definitively say, I remember now, all his sons are cyborgs. That includes you.
Parents, all they talk about is their children. So he's like,
not only just that, he was there because they work together. So it's not like okay, hey, like we go to a random lab and you're telling me about your day. It's like, no, we're doing gene manipulation. So chances are you're using gene manipulation for your own children. I'm probably helping you with that. Queen probably even helped him on the project, with all this stuff. So he knows for a fact, like, yeah, you're a cyborg. You have genetic enhancements, exoskeleton. You have, that's why the raid suit is able to work with your DNA. It's a DNA that we was already predicting that you would have because gene manipulation.
You already knew how tall you're going to be.
Exactly. The whole dimensions. The raid suit only works, and this has been confirmed. The raid suit only works with the user. You can't pass it on to a different person. So that didn't belong to anyone else. It is made for Sanji. Now, what I believe, because Sanji did say it was after the second time he wore the raid suit, and the second time it wasn't even in battle. The second time was when he was in the bathhouse. So,
Go invisible.
And all he did was go invisible. I think that by using the raid suit, which enhances your abilities, and I'm gonna get into that. I think by using the raid suit, which enhances your abilities, it activated the dormant abilities that he had in him that he didn't realize he did have. But because he thought it was only a raid suit ability thing, he decided to start trying to use his abilities. So keep that in mind. He doesn't try to utilize certain abilities about himself because he doesn't think he's a cyborg. Once he puts on German tech, he now tries to use said abilities. And now his body is starting to feel different.
It's like if you thought that you can only speak well if you were on stage.
Or if you never thought you could fly, that's something that superheroes could do.
Right.
And then now that you get told you have superpowers, now you try to fly and you're flying. So the last piece to this is going back to again to Whole Cake Island with Sanji. We see a fight with Reiju. That's the guy with the blue hair, with the lightning abilities. He does something very important here. When this was after they got into a little scuffle about a woman getting injured, you know how Sanji gets. He tries to fight Reiju, and they get into a scuffle. At this point in time, we see Reiju is able to use his lightning abilities through his kicks, nonetheless, on Sanji. This is with him. This is Reiju without, and I mean without his raid suit. He's able to do this. Also, when Sanji went to charge after him, he said stealthed and then disappeared. And it's not like he said stealthed and just moved really fast, because Sanji, we also got to see later on, has very good observation haki. Now, you know, Sanji also gears his abilities more towards speed. So not only is he more of a speedster, he also has really good observation haki. He was able to react to Katakuri, who was using future sight, and shot a jelly bean at him, and Sanji was able to react after getting caught off guard. So his observation haki is extremely up there, and yet he didn't know where this guy went, where Reiju went. And so we have to ask, are the raid suits just enhancing your abilities, or is it giving you abilities? And that shows right there that abilities like lightning, abilities like turning invisible, might just be durability. Those abilities might just be something that is just inherent within their DNA, and the raid suit just enhances them. Because we know for a fact that it definitely does enhance them. And now, because of Reiju, we know that you can utilize your abilities outside the raid suit. Now Sanji puts on the raid suit, not thinking about this like we're on. You know, we're living in 2021. I'm not sure where Sanji was living at. But now that he actually tries to utilize these abilities, now his body starts feeling different. Now he has an exoskeleton. Now, what else are we going to see? He already was using Diable Jambe, which is fire conjuring, like Reiju has lightning conjuring. Wonder if he can turn invisible without the raid suit. These are things that we got to take into account. Now, that's the end of theory time. That's the end of theory time. I just want to say to you guys, my boy Sanji was weak out there before this. I'm just saying, like, you can't, at this point in time, if you need all of this just to beat Queen, and Queen is a goofster. Queen was out there hurting himself. Queen just do stupid things. King calls Queen incompetent several times. No one disputes these facts. So at this point, and the Queen on top of that is a scientist. He's not a fighter, which is probably why he's not that good in the battlefield. Like, you know, on a 1v1 battle, you know, even when we was looking at King and Queen versus Marco, Queen was the only one that was bleeding and, you know, and doing a hard time against Marco. Sorry, like King was pretty much chilling, but Queen was pretty much having a hard time. And again, it's because he's a scientist. We're not faulting the scientist.
It's not his thing.
Yeah, like you're fighting a nerd. Like, so that's really just it. Like, he's a pretty strong and built dude. I mean, well, he's, you know, he says his muscle, but you know,
he can hit hard. Like when him versus Big Mom.
Yeah, we saw that, and that's
he put in some work, but it's not enough.
It's but so much he can do. So you have it that this guy, if it wasn't for all these enhancements, we're going to kill you. You can't say that Sanji is 2 leagues above Zoro. You can't say Sanji is equal to Luffy. I don't know what you're gonna say. I would never say that. But literally, and I gotta make this clear for you guys. Sanji, power-wise, is below Luffy. He is below Zoro. I'm honestly about to put him below Yamato. And he's like right around Jinbei. I'd probably give him better than Jinbei, to tell you the truth. But that's where he is. Now, as a character, and that's actually where Sanji shines the most. So don't get me wrong. I don't think Sanji is up there power level wise. But as a character, I cannot deny that his character is very important, very vital to the Straw Hats as a whole, especially Luffy. Just recently, Sanji has been called one of the wings to the Pirate King.
He's like he'd be like the Flash. He's not gonna deliver the hardest hit, but he's gonna be pivotal in certain parts of the story.
Exactly.
With the stealth, his stealth and speed, that's extremely dangerous.
Exactly.
Like he could steal something from you in a blink of an eye.
And not only just that too, he also keeps Luffy's humanity, because Sanji cares a lot about his crew members. He cares a lot about his people. And he doesn't care about his people back home. Remember, that's how Big Mom was able to reel him in. She threatened Breadleg. So Sanji cares.
A guy that should be able to take care of himself.
Yeah. So Sanji, he's a very caring person. He's a very soft person, and honestly, that is very important for the Pirate King to still, no matter where he goes, to never forget about the people that has been a part of him, has been with him throughout his journey, and has been with him throughout the beginning of his journey, and he's no longer with. Sanji does not believe in leaving a person behind, and Luffy shares that same ideology, and we got to see that through and thin at Whole Cake Island, and I think that is what makes Sanji so important. Is that he keeps Luffy, in a sense, a compassionate individual. Zoro, being the other wing, makes sure that Luffy stays a strong individual. He leads. He's structured. He's presentable. But Sanji, at the same time, is that friendship aspect, that love aspect, that care that I think that is still very much needed. So overall, and I'm gonna get Phil also give his thoughts too. I think that as a character, Sanji is where. So overall, I think that where Sanji shines the most is that he's a caring, compassionate dude that will always try to do everything he can to protect his crew, his friends, and his loved ones. He may not have the power to back him up, but now that we're reaching the end of times in One Piece, Oda said 5 more years to One Piece. I think now that's where we're going to see the power-ups, and I think this was very much needed to explain how that someone like a Cook, who doesn't really train, can now start competing with commanders. So what's your final take?
Final take is I think back to what Reiju told him before they parted ways after Sanji risked his life to save him, save his family from Big Mom. He said, you're not going to be able to save your captain, though, as you are right now.
Yeah.
Here's the raid suit. Sanji was reluctant to take it. Now I realize I don't think Reiji was saying that just because if you don't have the suit, you can't be better. I think he was like, it's like the training kit. It helps you bring out the best of your body.
The best of you.
It's just funny how they didn't tell him, like, hey, you do know you're enhanced like us, right? They wanted to, it's like they wanted to let him find that out.
Come to that conclusion himself. So, and I think also too, not to cut you off, I think overall is that what we also get from Sanji too is that you have to learn to embrace all aspects of yourself. So I think his character is still growing, and I think it's still growing because
that's what's holding him back. He can't accept that that's a part of his
exactly
life.
Just like how he can't accept that, a lot of people, especially within the story, can't accept that there's something bigger. If you look at characters like Yamato, where Kaido is her father, she's not Odin. Kaido is her father. She needs to learn to accept that. When we look at Momonosuke, that's Odin's son. He's supposed to be the next shogun. He has a lot of weight on his shoulders. He leads the scabbards. And so we have it that people, and that's a reoccurring theme. You need to embrace your heritage and you need to embrace your roots. And I think that's something that's respectable. It's that, it is a long journey, and sometimes we don't like our past, especially how dark and terrifying it could be, especially in the world of One Piece, where everybody has a tragic past. Look at Law. But at the same time, I think that in order to grow stronger, and I think that's where Oda's getting with this, you need to be able to embrace all aspects of yourself. So that's it for us today, guys. If you like everything that we had to say, please give us a like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Over and out.